wherever you are part of a tribe, right, that in itself is an emotional inner child ancestral healing tip, right? Because what are we doing when we're in a tribe? What are we doing when we're in a collective? What are we doing when we're in a community, right? We're allowing ourselves to be held by another, right? And until we can hold ourselves by doing this emotional deep work, I just want to shout this to the rooftops. It's okay to allow someone to hold that space for you.
Welcome to the Cosmic Love Antenna Podcast. This podcast is meant to encourage you to connect within so you can share your light with the world. And now, here's your host, Harrison Meagher.
Welcome, beautiful beings, back to another episode of the Cosmic Love Antenna. This is your weekly installment of your inner connection to your outer expression, where I, your host Harrison, set the intention of pulling back the layers, restricting health, alignment, and love. And today's quick little bonus episode is another rebroadcast session where I had the pleasure to be interviewed on the Wellness Warriors Collective by my friend Lindsaya, who's been a previous guest on this show. And we had a beautiful chat about all things inner child healing, trauma, emotional release, intention, attention, and all of the beautiful mystical topics in between. So make sure you listen with your open hearts. Go check out Lindsaya's beautiful show over on Spotify and Apple. But please enjoy, get your popcorn, get your heart ready, and soak all of this up. Sending love.
I am so grateful to have my friend from all the way on the other side of this globe, this spinning, beautiful ball of just gloriousness that we all call home. He is tuning in from Australia. Harrison, thank you so much for joining us for this episode, bringing your light to life right here. I'm so appreciative of you, friend, and excited to have this conversation. So I would actually, as I hand this to you, and I know you're going to say thank you and all the good things, I'd love for you to also introduce yourself. Tell everyone who you are today, please.
I'm so excited to be here, Lindsaya. Thank you I know we were talking about this for a little bit, but it's so nice to be in your energy, right? I spend so much time hosting other beautiful people, but it's a whole other thing to be in the container with someone else, and your energy is very unique. So sending love, my friend. Thank you for having me. For people that don't know my voice, as Lindsaya said, I am a spiritual mentor, a holistic health practitioner down from Australia. And at the moment in my sort of journey, I spend a lot of time working with beautiful beings, helping them connect back into their cosmic space of internal love by moving through a lot of internal disconnection, emotional pain, and trauma from their past. And that's really how I'm showing my light in the world at the moment.
So really just easy work, like
easy work. Yeah.
Just the easy stuff.
The light stuff.
Yeah. Not there's no depth to that kind of body of work, is there? Wow. That's profound. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for the work that you're doing in this world, the way you're showing up. And if you have not followed Harrison on some platform or been in a room, him and I have been in many conversations, sitting side by side on stage, really paralleling in our and so much of what we strive to bring forth, and how we hope to help through many of overlapping beliefs, and then of course new understandings that we are so excited to share with one another. So that's why I'm excited to have you here. And I'm so excited for our community to get to meet you, because you are such a holder of space. In fact, the Holding Space Club on Clubhouse is a perfect example of that. But I wanted to really talk about this work that you're doing and how you're unpacking. And when we talk about, inner child work, or we talk about any of the childhood trauma or even, generational trauma, and we don't even have to go that far. We can stay right inside the container of self here if we'd like. But I would love for you to share with people a little bit about what that means, because some may not even know what we're referencing.
So it's funny that you said, the light work, this emotional world that I find myself week to week being pulled more deeply into. It's never not there, but I think the thing that changes is our conscious awareness of it, right? We start to we move through our adult lives, and I know this is a big part of my story, we move through our adult lives being triggered, right? And I think this is a big part of the whole meditative movement in the world. There is a big difference between reacting versus responding. And I think a big pull for this work that I sort of stepped into at the moment, and why I think it's so important when we talk about inner child and even the ancestral pieces, is we now start to shift. We start to shift from a reactionary mode to a responding mode, right? And when we start to respond to our life from an emotional and even spiritual lens, we now start to see the actual control that we have. And what I mean by that is we don't control our lives, right? Because why would we want total control? Because that really takes the essence out of life. But what I mean is we have control over the way that we allow our essence to interact with someone else's, right? Because I think a lot of the time we get lost in the idea that we become the victim to our circumstances, right? You gave the example of childhood trauma. I know in my story that it was very easy for me to add the blame, add the anger, add the sadness, add the shame, add the guilt onto external factors, right? So if there was an incident that occurred, it would be so easy for me to project those things to outside elements, right? And I am the person that is to blame here. I am the person that is the victim that cannot change. And I feel a big part of this work, Lindsaya, and I'll throw it back to you, is really taking back that power, right? Taking back the power, moving beyond the victim and starting to feel like, oh, there is something I can do here, something I can forgive, something I can let go, and something I can transform.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So good. And I say that from a place of like, it is like because to me, that truth, that is the truth in every sense and shape when we're talking about becoming observers, in my opinion, of this great opportunity we have to live however many moments we're blessed with, and so profound. So it's a really big intention of mine that within the episodes, people find a way to apply something that they learn, to walk away with an actionable step, not simply, oh, that sounds great, but what could I do to maybe become a little curious in this space, or how would I best expand? So I would love to ask that of you, to share in however you would, remembering that this could be brand new, and for others, they could feel very healed and whole in this space.
So I really appreciate that powerful intention, Lindsay, because I think intention and attention and awareness is really step number one, right? Listening to these episodes, maybe feeling the motivation, feeling the inspiration, feeling your beautiful voice or mine. But then that's sort of the divine feminine, right? Allowing that energy to flow up and feel all the stuff. But then we need the other side of the coin, right? We need that beautiful divine masculine to take the inspired action to see the change. Because if we don't have that, then we're going to be unbalanced. So I think for people listening, I'll give 3 quick sort of actionable items to start here in regards to the emotional, spiritual, inner child work that I'm really passionate about. First of all, I think it's really becoming aware of what your inner needs are, right? So simply asking the question, right, what does my inner child need right now, right? It could be to cry, right? It could be to go outside, right? It could be to just express. It could be to let go of some anger. It could be to just feel supported, to feel nurtured, to maybe to ask for some love from someone, right? That's a very simple, actionable item that we can internally ask ourselves. The second little practical tip I would give here is start tuning into how your body responds. So not just asking the question and seeing what comes up around the need, but feeling the body sensation, right? A lot of these, and this is something I'm so passionate about at the moment, is that the mind-body connection, or the spirit-body connection. A lot of our unconscious traumas and wounds, they don't just exist in our brain and our head, right? They exist in our full body, right? Our subconscious, which is where a lot of our past traumas lie, is a full body tissue thing. So if we're holding on to sadness and guilt and shame and anger, whatever it is, it's going to be in the body somewhere. So a simple actionable item that we can do is, 1, ask the question what I need, but 2, feel the bodily response, right? Do I feel a tightness in my chest? Do I feel a sinking in my stomach? Do I feel a closing in my throat? Do I feel a sensation in my forehead, right? And then tip number 3, a practical step here I would take is, and this is a big one, and I would do this with someone you trust, maybe a coach, a practitioner, whoever you feel comfortable with. I would take the step and write a letter to yourself. And I call this the beautiful inner child letter process, right? Writing a love letter to that little being. And the intention of it is to not relive or re-traumatize around a specific event, but it is really the difference between reliving and releasing, right? You want to write a love letter to that inner child so you create the space for energy to flow. How'd it go?
Oh, well, you know that there's no need to seek approval anyways, because you know without a doubt, and you and I both know enough people. I know enough people that have worked with you, have been part of those containers and masterminds that have elevated. And so I've also sat alongside the stages and had the conversations and shared in tandem. So of course, I'm elated with what you just poured out into this community and the opportunity to go inward and be insightful in this way. The other thing is that you don't know is in our episode around chakras with Catherine, that of course, you know my passion, our shared passion of breath work. And so we talked about breath work and that releasing of trauma and having that. And so I'm encouraging, if people didn't listen to that episode, to circle back and go listen to the episode around chakras and to really lean in to not only what Harrison just beautifully gave us 3 action steps, but using that breath to provide that space to open up that awareness. Like, oh, I'm hoping, it's huge. And what people, again, we actually have surpassed our goal. So we will be moving to some short clips over on YouTube, because we have followers that are listening, and we're excited to ensure that everyone is being best served. But the reality is, in terms of, the full episode and these action steps, it's coming in here. It's coming into the conversations on Clubhouse. It's getting into the social, following and really absorbing one another's light, allowing for it to us to bask in it.
and Lindsay, can I add something quickly to that? Just like in relation to this inner child conversation that we're talking about today, I really want to just point this out in case people aren't putting this together, right? Being in a community like this, whether it's, beautiful Lindsaya's beautiful collective that we're all a part of, whether it's on Clubhouse, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you are part of a tribe, right? That in itself is an emotional inner child ancestral healing tip, right? Because what are we doing when we're in a tribe? What are we doing when we're in a collective? What are we doing when we're in a community, right? We're allowing ourselves to be held by another. Right. And until we can hold ourselves by doing this emotional, deep work, I just want to shout this to the rooftops. It's okay to allow someone to hold that space for you, right? Because sometimes what is needed, and this is, I'll just mention this and throw it back to you, my friend. We are both equally, in my opinion, a spiritual being and a human being, right? And that spiritual being is powerful beyond all measure. But sometimes what is needed is that human being to be held by another human to come back to that power because of the trauma, because of our human experience, because of the pain, right? So I wanted to acknowledge that. Does that resonate, my friend?
Oh my gosh, yes. And what I was going to say and lost track when I got sidetracked into sharing about us going on YouTube is that what people, because we're not currently on a video interface. And so what people don't know is I've been sitting here the whole time, nodding my head back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and a yes and no. I am wholeheartedly agreeing that is not in question. And it is landing. And I know it's landing for listeners out there, especially our opportunity to really go inward and consider, where do I have an opportunity to look at and to revisit something in my childhood that may not have been pleasant, and where I can become empowered again, where I can be reminded that I am safe and whole today, and I can go back and use that love to really wrap that younger version of me in whatever it was I needed. So I thought that was absolutely beautiful. Thank you for bringing that forth.
You're welcome, my friend.
So I would love to expand into a little bit more of the work on this that you are doing. I know you have mentorships and containers that you're doing exclusively with women, if it is my understanding. And so that's really who you're wrapping your arms around and helping hold that space and elevate them. So tell us a little bit more about when we're even referencing working with you, and everyone knows, and I know you don't even stand in the space of pitching yourself. We'll put all the ways, if you want to work with Harrison, you want to follow Harrison, you're going to be able to check it out in the show notes. We're going to point you in all of the directions. But I mean, if someone doesn't even understand, like, is this kind of work for me? What does this person even do? Like, they may not really understand. So I'd love to really end our episode together before we say our final goodbyes with you sharing a bit more about that.
So thank you for asking, Lindsaya. And I, as you've alluded to at the start of this conversation, we've spent a lot of time speaking together, a lot on Clubhouse. And something very quickly I noticed within that space is the power of, and I was just speaking about this a second ago, the power of seeing someone, the power of holding someone in all that they are. And this idea for me really is what germinated my container, my private group mastermind coaching container. And like you said, I bring in women to help with this intention of moving through internal disconnection, trauma, and pain from their past. But really the objective of it, the goal of it, the intention of it is to hold a safe space needed for that exploration to go deeper, right? And I do this in a couple of ways. I do this through the intentional space of allowing someone to speak and talk, right? But it's a little bit more than that, right? It's, as you're listening to this podcast, and maybe people have been listening to your voice for a while now, Lindsaya, on this show, you feel something when people talk, right? You feel communication and love isn't just in the words that are expressed. It is the frequency that is behind them. And within my container, within my group, I really set the intention of holding that frequency of love for all that needs to come up. Right. So when people come into the mastermind, that is really the first thing that is seen and felt, is that safety, that security, that support that is needed to finally release and let go. Right. And that in itself is a lot, as you can imagine. But also within my container, what I really love to offer beautiful souls that come in to do the work is we go deep into activations. And I know this is something else that you've experienced, Lindsaya, that I've done a little bit on Clubhouse, is really taking you on a deep journey into yourself. So it's not just allowing you to speak and talk and express, but I also am very intentional with the channel that I am. And without going off into a deep chat about what that means, is that when I channel, I connect into my higher self, right? And I bring in certain messages and energy and guidance that I then share with you, right? And then through that meditative journey, you then come back to more answers, more realizations, more. And I'll give a very tangible example here, whether it's meeting your actual inner child, whether it's meeting your ancestors, whether it's meeting your ascended masters, your angels, whatever it is, the activation that I channel facilitates that. So just to summarize, this is what it looks like to spend a bit of time in the container, and then you sort of have it wrapped up in beautiful accountability lessons and action items that they then complete around it.
I love it. Yes. And I've been in activations, and I've experienced some of what you've brought forth in that environment. But the reality is, it's a reminder to us, like, those activation moments that you've brought in the virtual space, it is proof that it is the frequency, not always the proximity, right? It doesn't mean that we have to be side by side to be able, because energy can travel. I mean, it has no barriers. It is infinite. Yes. So we have, go ahead.
Well, I just because I want to make a distinction here, Lindsay, because I think this is we're heading into a new age at the moment, and what I mean by that is we're moving from the energy age into the frequency age, and I want to make this distinction. Everything is energy, right? I'm sure, Lindsay, you've talked a lot about this. Everything is energy. We're energy at a very fundamental state. But I would actually say there is a more specific world we can go into once we understand that, and it's frequency. And what I mean by frequency is your unique frequency. Every single person listening to this episode right now has a unique soul, and in that unique soul, you have a unique frequency. So I want to add that in because we're starting to shift into this understanding. We all understand energy, but now what we're also starting to see is that Lindsaya has a very specific way in which she expresses her soul. And that frequency expresses itself through the many different things that she does. And the reason that this is empowering, I'll end with this, is it starts to remind us that we are the medicine, that we are the power, right? We spend so much time looking for extra things to add on to make us feel like we're good enough. But when we start to tune into the frequency of what we are, we realize that we are the thing that does the healing. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. And it is a reminder of what the wellness warrior stands for. It stands for what is innately ours. It's our birthright. We were born with the opportunity to live into the full abundance of it. And I think we have been programmed and poisoned in many ways and misinformed. And with that, we have lost its full abundance. And the belief is that we can, without question, remember. It lives within us, generations deep. It is ours for the taking, but it doesn't mean that the instinct is as easy to retrieve because it may not have been a recent habit. And there's a lot of congestion that can cause disruption there. So yes, it not only made sense, it was beautiful.
You felt it. You felt it.
It was beautiful. Yes, absolutely. And Harrison, I want to say thank you so much. If you would like to share with everyone, and then of course, we'll put it in the show notes, but if you'd like to share with everyone where they can find you out there in the world so that they can go with their little fingers and give you a follow.
Well, I'd love to share it, Lindsay, but I just want to say super quick that I love you very much. And I'm so excited that you're doing this podcast. I'm so excited that you're sharing. I know you've been doing this work for a while now, but this podcast is relatively newish for you. And I'm so excited that you're sharing your voice now and your frequency through this medium, because as someone who's also doing this kind of work, I know the power of just being able to do this on a frequent level. So first of all, I just want to say I love you. For people listening,
Love you.
Receive my friend. For people listening, you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, Clubhouse, LinkedIn at Harrison Meagher. That's Meagher spelled Meagher. And you can also connect with me on my website, same name, harrisonmeagher.com. And I'd love to connect. If you want to learn more about the mastermind and the container that I'm running, just reach out to me, shoot me a message, and we'll have a chat.
I love that you're the same name everywhere. It makes it very easy to find. Thank you, friend. I love you as well. Thank you for bringing your light here and shining it into our community. And just grateful that we are in community together and shining our light and moving forward. And so if you loved this episode, share it out. Share out the hope of healing, of coming to a deeper understanding, of truly honoring what lives within us. Share this with someone who may not have considered these as ways they could walk in a deepening of self-love and a more connected relationship with self.
Thank you for listening to the Cosmic Love Antenna podcast. We hope you enjoyed. Be sure to follow Harrison on Instagram, Twitter, and Clubhouse at Harrison Meagher. That's Harrison, Meagher.